We are back.
We're back.
Today we talk about strategy number 14 from the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene.
Yes.
Another wonderful strategy. Overwhelm resistance with speed and suddenness.
Yeah.
The Blitzkrieg strategy. You know, there's a very famous saying, el que pega primero,
Pega dos veces.
pega dos veces, which is the person that hits first hits twice.
Right.
And that to me sums up a good portion of this chapter.
That's great. That's really good, actually.
Some of these sayings, they stand their ground, right?
Oh,
the test of time.
The test of time, yeah. Well, they're famous, yeah. Whoever came up with them was a genius. I mean, it's true,
Yeah.
And since you're talking about hitting, he cites the fact that Muhammad Ali, previously known as Cassius Clay, he wasn't a power hitter. He didn't have the punching power, and yet he won his first 25 fights, and 17 of those 25 he won by knockout. And everybody was saying, how is that possible? Because he doesn't have punching power. And according to the book and Robert Greene, and I believe it, the anticipated blow makes the most impact.
The unanticipated.
Excuse me, the unanticipated. The unanticipated. What you're not waiting for. You're not waiting for that hit that makes the most impact.
It makes sense. They say that Houdini died because he took a punch to the stomach that he wasn't expecting, he wasn't ready for. And he used to do that stunt all the time, where he would have somebody, super big, muscular guy, punch him in the stomach, and he could take the hit because he was prepared for it. He had trained himself. But apparently, in the way I understand it was like at a party, a cocktail party or something, I don't know, before the show, and he took a punch unexpectedly, and he had internal bleeding. He even performed on stage and everything afterwards, and he didn't want to go to the doctor. By the time they got to him, it was too late. That's what killed him. An unexpected punch.
Yeah, so supposedly the science behind it is that, let's take Muhammad Ali. He would hit you when you weren't prepared. So the mind, there wasn't enough contact between getting the punch and that message being sent to the brain.
Being prepared for it somehow.
Being prepared for it. So, it wasn't waiting for it, so it just knocked you out. If you are waiting for the punch, you clench up or you
maybe can defend, can maybe get a little bit out of the way.
Yeah. Or even take the punch straight, but you're able to clench your muscles, contract them, just put them in a defense, because like you say, you've been training for it.
Yeah.
And so what Robert Greene does is beautifully apply that, which is scientifically based or whatever, to life and wars, and he gives you examples like the Germans and Genghis Khan. I mean,
I love hearing the history on Genghis Khan. Man, I don't remember in school learning so much about Genghis Khan. I mean, I've learned a lot more about him in the books we've read and the documentaries and research that I've done outside of school. He was tremendous.
What I learned in high school on Genghis Khan was a little blurb on the history of, it was a chapter on Asia, in Asia Minor. It was a little blurb. Genghis Khan ruled the largest empire for something, but they never got into, he's...
it's...
What did they say? Half the population over there has got the gene. I mean,
Yeah,
He definitely procreated, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, he's got all kinds of people with his genetics walking around Asia and uh,
But he was a tremendous strategist.
yeah,
And one thing that Greene brought up, and this is what's so cool about his research, is that he says, look, he inherited a very powerful army because they were very good at riding on horseback, and they were really good at, in a retreating stance, firing back, in a attacking stance,
arrows
firing
with their
arrow,
bows.
yeah,
Yeah,
with arrows. There was a lot that he went into, even down to the shirts that they wore, that they were silk.
correct.
So if it caught an arrow, it didn't penetrate the skin much, or
Or
they
at
were it
all.
was or at all, and they were able to take that arrow out. So there was a lot that goes into how they were extremely good at warfare. But what he did, what Genghis Khan did, was he organized this chaotic, very efficient, or they were good at warfare, but they weren't able to get organized ever, and he brought them into an organized group.
He brought discipline
He brought discipline, strategy,
and organization.
organization. Man, and that's what made them who the Mongols that we know of today.
Oh, it one of the biggest empires if ever. Because I know we talk about the Persian Empire, great in its own right. Julius Caesar, the Romans, also great. The Macedonian guy, Alexander the Great. Okay, they're all good, right? But the Mongols. This guy, Genghis Khan, must have been like charismatic, magnetic, and from what I understand, he was a big guy, and that also shows, the power that he had, and he united them, and they respected him, and he fought right alongside of them many times. So and he was he did psychological warfare, because this was not in the chapter, but I've read before that they would sound their drums, dun, dun, and the enemy knew that they were out there and they were coming for them. So they would sound their drums. They were called war drums. And what he did was he gave the enemy the opportunity to surrender. Okay? Without a fight. And that's the warfare, the mental strain that he brought to these people. And if they knew, we're not going to surrender, we're going to fight you, okay, then you're going to know that we're going to decimate you. Everyone is going to die. And he did that a couple of times, and he took a lot of tribes under without a fight because of this fear. And I mean, it was, can you imagine? You're sitting in your village and you're hearing these drums over at the mountain, and and they're coming for you.
Surrender. Live to for
live
another day.
Live to see another day.
So we're talking about warfare and Genghis Khan. What Greene talks about in today's society is hesitancy. A lot of people can't make a decision. Indecisiveness.
Right.
So the strategy is to overwhelm resistance with speed and suddenness. Part of that has to do with making quick decisions, having conviction, and being able to make a decision. Whether it's, let's say, the right or the wrong one, you'll find out, but you make a decision. And that's one thing that I personally struggled with a lot more. I still have that challenge, but for some reason, let's say that something as simple as, like, I was invited to a specific event, whether it be a party or something of a friend. In my mind, I had this like pending thing, and I wouldn't say yes or no to it. I would just leave it pending in my mind. I wouldn't until the very end. And now, you've rubbed off a little bit on me, some of your ways, but now I know, you know what, I'm going to decide whether I'm going to go or not, and let them know and put closure to that already.
You still take a long time.
I usually say no.
As far as I'm concerned.
You invite to a lot of things that I usually you're gonna get. We're not gonna make it to that, or we'll probably make it.
Well, since you brought it up,
Yeah.
from my point of view, you still take forever to
Okay.
decide.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Now,
I can still work on it.
You think you have improved, and that's wonderful, and maybe you have.
Well, the other side is that even when I say no, you still continued the invitation. So you don't, which is great, But you invite to something.
Take a chip off
sure,
until you.
You sure you don't want to go?
You're sure? You're sure?
But if you think it's bad now, it was worse before.
Okay.
I mean, I couldn't make a decision whether I was going to go to the beach or not. I
No,
don't
but
know. I had that issue.
You still can't.
No, now I can't. I think part of it also has to do with I'm a lot more focused and clear on what I need to do and my priorities in life.
Uh-huh.
And before, I wanted to attend a lot of things. I wanted to attend everything.
Okay.
And so by wanting to be in many different places, I had a hard time saying no to go to those things.
Okay.
So anyways, I think, I can work on it, but I think that being able to make decisions quickly is a very good thing in life. And it just also clears the brain, because if you have a constant, I haven't replied to that, or I don't know if I'm going to go to that, it's just fogging up your brain, I think.
Yeah, what was it? Frederick the Great. Frederick the Great said that an army that moves fast usually has higher morale. Velocity creates a sense of vitality. This is what he said. So, you could also make a really quick decision to a very bad thing. So you just have to weigh your options. The problem is that with the way society is today, if an opportunity, and now I'm talking business, if a business opportunity comes to you, it's not going to be there for a long time.
If it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people competing today for a portion of that pie. It's really interesting. Some people would argue that the pie has gotten bigger because technology has allowed a wider spread of things to go on, right? But some people argue, no. The pie hasn't gotten bigger. The pie has remained the same size. What's gotten bigger is the number of people trying to take a portion of that pie. And we're 7 billion people plus. So somebody is going to take advantage of an opportunity that is sitting on your doorstep for a little longer time.
Mm-hmm.
And we see it in real estate constantly.
So acting fast is a positive in that instance.
Yeah, because there's always somebody that's ready to pull the trigger because of the situations that they find themselves in. Whether they're coming off a 1031 exchange, whether they have money in the bank, they're waiting to buy a house for one of their kids, whatever the case is, right? We're talking business. Or buying an insurance agency, if it's a good deal, and it's on the open market, then you have to be stealth and quick. Because it's not going to last. There's just a lot of people looking for opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just not going to last.
Yeah.
So speed is of the essence, according to this chapter.
So being able to analyze the situation quickly, properly, and then take action quickly is perfect, right? It would be ideal. But sometimes we get caught up in a situation and we don't properly analyze that situation. So for example, let's say an opportunity is brought to you, hey, I need a decision by the end of the day. You feel a little bit rushed by them, but you have to give them a decision, and let's say you make an incorrect decision. Well, you acted quickly, so you moved fast, but the problem with that is that you didn't do it. The problem is that you didn't do it.
Let's go
I
on.
didn't pause it. Yeah. The problem is that you didn't do it. You didn't analyze it properly because you got emotional about the situation. So I think you have to be careful that you're analyzing a situation properly. Like, for example, you say, just because we've come across this in real estate, just because a property is not on the open market and is brought to you doesn't mean that it's a good opportunity.
That's correct.
People confuse those things.
That's a good point to bring up, because every time, many times when we're talking to investors, they say, hey, do you have something off market? They're totally assuming that the property that's off market is a good deal. Many times it is, but not always, guys and ladies, not always.
So you have to have a really good way of analyzing,
Yeah,
and that comes with experience.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't, and it doesn't. If you get a mentor that's been doing this for a while, that mentor can teach you the shortcuts. I'm not one for pushing shortcuts, because shortcuts are not good, I think. But they can give you a real quick idea on how to access a property, if it's a good deal or not, based on income.
Yeah. Now, how do you use this strategy, let's say, with the unpredictability side of it? Because Greene talked a lot about Genghis Khan being unpredictable. He attacked from the south, then he attacks from the north, then he loses intentionally, right? That's the unpredictability. So how do you, let's say, use that?
Well, we did a podcast, and we have a lot of them. I don't remember which one it was, but it was many years ago that I could see that some of the people that were associated in my business group, and now we're talking about, I was working for a Fortune 500 company, okay, in the insurance business. They could predict my moves, and I didn't like that. And so I did things to become, on purpose, unpredictable.
Okay.
And it was a very difficult thing for me to do, become unpredictable. Because people knew I was going to get there earlier than when the meeting started. I was going to be this, or there's a lot of things that
You're always going to be an hour early.
I'm always going to be earlier. Yeah.
So that's predictable.
But see, that was strategic.
You're always going to wear the same tie.
Whatever
it is.
I really don't care what people, as long as I'm clean and I have a clean shirt, I'm smelling good, right? You do have to be acceptable by society, right? You can't be, but here's the point. It was strategic, because by getting there an hour to 45 minutes earlier, I had access to the speaker all by myself. Mm-hmm. And I was able to make an impression on the speaker. And if it was a good speaker that brought a lot of value, then that would be a relationship that could be further,
Sure.
And many times, I was there early, and I would help them set up and talk about what they were going to speak about, which was usually a very interesting we're talking about business, and they were speaking to maybe 100 people, maybe a little bit more. And so it's difficult to get to the speaker after the fact. So by getting there beforehand, I had access to all the speakers, and it proved to be very valuable to me, because these were people in key positions. And at one point in time, it came an opportunity to request their services. And we had a little bit more of a personal relationship, because I'm helping a guy set up a speaker, or I'm helping a guy move tables or whatever, because they were in the wrong position based on where he wanted to make the presentation. The plugs were far away, not enough long cords. I've done it all. And I didn't mind getting my hands dirty, take off my jacket, my coat, and help them out. And it worked.
So that's a great way to connect with people. But how does that have to do with unpredictability?
Well, See, there's a lot of good, like for example, you're reliable, right? People can count on you. That's a form of predictability, okay? When people think, oh, don't worry about it, this person's going to take care of it. Or, this person's going to be here on time. Or this person, every now and then, you want to change it up a little bit. Because being predictable, I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. And look, you've brought up the point where Paul Castellano, that mafia guy over in New York, he got shot and killed because he went to the same restaurant, every night or something like that? And when they wanted to take a hit on him, they knew he was going to be there because he did that over and over and over again. So, being too predictable is not all that good. We're not in the business of knocking off people, but you want to surprise people every now and then.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I think also being unpredictable could be, let's say, the normal way of let's say that you're trying to negotiate with somebody. The normal way of doing it, let's say, is A, B, and C. But if you bring another element to that negotiation, that's also being a little bit unpredictable. It's different. You're thinking outside the box. You're bringing something different that's not your normal.
Correct.
And you're being unpredictable.
Well, the Germans did it with this thing, the Blitzkrieg strategy.
The lightning
bolt kind of attack.
Yeah.
But they didn't attack the same all the time. They did it, either from the front, or then they flanked them, or they made they induced you into an attack so they could get you into a territory.
Oh, like lure you in.
Yeah, lure you in. So
yeah,
it's not the same recipe all the time.
Greene was calling it what Genghis Khan used, and what a lot of these strategists use is slow, fast, or
I had to read that several times.
Yeah, slow, fast, slow, quick.
Yeah.
And that this is something that comes from the I Ching. He brought up the I Ching again. That reminds me, the movie Collateral. Doesn't he bring up Tom Cruise in the movie Collateral? Doesn't he bring that up to Jamie Foxx?
Yes, he does.
I Ching.
Adapt.
Right?
Well, there's three things. What is it? You analyze, you adapt, and then you attack, or something like that. He was sitting in the back seat of the taxi cab. That's a great movie, folks, if you want to see it.
So
that's an old movie now.
Collateral. So Greene brought up that even Genghis Khan used this slow, quick, and the idea is that you part of the slow is like your preparation for the war, for the battle. You're preparing, you're organizing, but then once you're at the move, they think, and one of them was that Genghis Khan lured in Muhammad II, the Shah. His name was the Shah of Khwarazm.
Yeah.
Khwarazm. He lured him in by attacking from the south and purposely losing that battle and having to retreat. Genghis Khan retreats.
Incredible.
Then the Shah's son says, hey, they're not as fierce as we thought the Mongols were. And now that just boosted the ego of the Shah.
That's the thing. It boosted the ego, right? So they felt, we got them.
These guys.
We got these guys.
Wow.
And it was...
And then quick. So that was the slow. So that was part of what Greene is saying. Slow was the preparation. Slow was the losing that battle and retreating. Quick was attacking. And then the final quick was when Genghis Khan appears from the north and of the Shah's empire, and he appears himself with the soldiers, with the Mongols, and he said that it was like death himself appearing, right? Something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, can you imagine?
Man.
tactical.
And they chased the Shah out.
Well, he died. He was the ruler of one of the richest areas of the world at that time, and he died a pauper in rags and of hunger. He couldn't
Begging
find,
for food is what
begging
he
for
said.
food.
Wow.
See, a plug for Robert Greene. All this is in history, and I've over the years, I'm older now, so I'm 66 years old. I've been able to read different books on history and stuff like that, right?
You're a history buff. Yeah.
I like history, so let's say that I like to read it, okay? But I'll tell you what, you know what makes Robert Greene so successful? The way he tells his story. The way he delivers the information that he's been able to research and put together.
Yeah.
He has a way of telling the story in a unique way that captivates. That's what makes him, because look, all these books, he's done a lot of research and he's put a lot of stuff together, but he's essentially going back into history and grasping stuff from history. But the way he tells the story is unique. And I think that's the secret to his success.
Yeah, I think I would agree.
I mean, and they stay with you, because I've read this in other times, and,
Well, and the more that you read of the different Robert Greene books, I mean, a lot of them touch on some of the same topics, but it's not like you're reading the same material.
right.
Like in the 48 Laws of Power, he talks about a lot of these characters from the past: Napoleon, Genghis Khan, a ton of these different characters, and then he touches on them a little bit deeper. Like in the 33 Strategies of War, he's talked a lot about Napoleon. He's talked a lot about Genghis Khan. So far, we're 14 chapters in.
Right. Well, he also talked about Alexander the Great.
Talked about Alexander. He's talked about
He's
even
pulled-
FDR and Roosevelt. Johnson, Lyndon B. Johnson, and he talked about Johnson also in The Laws of Human Nature.
Right.
He's a lot of these characters, but it's cool because it doesn't feel like you're getting the same material.
Correct.
So, anyways, that was a little side on it. Only speed can neutralize speed. That's a quote from the book. What do you think about that?
I think it's brilliant. Because how do you, yeah, I agree with it. It's quite dangerous too. See, when you're get involved in this kind of a race for something, only the strongest wins. Only. All you have to do is look at Mother Nature. When a lion is running after, a prey that it want to kill or something like that.
So the strongest
That's
doesn't
it.
necessarily. The strongest could be the fastest, because if you're able to outrun that lion,
Yeah,
outsmart that lion.
it's crazy.
So in today's world, speed can neutralize speed. If you're being attacked, you have a competitor that's going, let's say, after you, or for the same opportunity as you, which we deal with that a lot because you're dealing with properties that maybe are in open market or not in open market, but they're provided to a select few investors or whatever the case, right? You have to be able to move quickly, but also you have to be able to perform.
Well, as you move forward, if you're able to, in our business, close escrows, then everybody knows. The lender knows, the title knows, the escrow knows, everybody that's associated with the closure, which is like 15, 20 different, more. Because when you do something like that, the painter's going to get work, the carpet man's going to get work, the roofer will probably get work, the plumber's going to come in, the electrician's going to come in. I already talked about 6. So, you're bringing in, That's why they say real estate keeps the economy going. Because everybody gets involved with one simple sale, potentially.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to update things and so forth. So the construction guy, everybody's
I
going to
mean,
get involved.
it could be, but I'm even thinking, like, for example, we were talking about an insurance quote today, and speed of the quote is very important.
Well, sure.
But not only that, your
People
performance, can you actually close on that quote? The agent that is providing it, because you can provide quotes all day long, but if you can't actually close on them, you don't have companies that can actually bind insurance policies, then you're wasting people's time.
Sure.
So, speed, performance.
It's of the essence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're gonna if you are of the belief that speed trumps speed, right? Only speed can. What's the quote? Only speed can.
Neutralize speed.
Yeah, you better be ready. You better be ready, because if you haven't done your homework, then potentially you don't know who you're going up against. And if you're going up to a Genghis Khan, you're doomed.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah.
You're doomed. One of these Genghis Khans in business today, you're doomed.
Okay, so Genghis Khan, he gave people the opportunity to surrender.
Yes.
So he was either going to conquer you and could take over your land and rule you, or annihilate you.
Correct.
In today's world of business, I've heard there's enough business for everybody. You don't have to kill the other guy. What do you think about that?
I don't think that's all that applicable today. I don't, there's enough business for everybody. Yeah, there's enough business for everybody. But you gotta be, it's not being ruthless, but you gotta be efficient and fast in what you're doing. And some people you can't look to the sidelines. You just have to focus on your goal, because you're representing a client, and you have to do what's best for the client. And in order to do that, you got to be at your best fighting stance. And so your negotiating abilities are gonna speak for themselves. You're gonna be closing escrows or not. Okay, that's our business. If you're in the insurance business, So
you have to be aggressively pursuing it. There's this idea of there's enough business for everybody. Be a nice guy.
No.
No.
No. I used to think that there was enough business for everybody, but I don't anymore. I'm getting older. I have less time in this game left for me, right? So if I lose a company that's producing $50 million in revenue today, I probably won't be able to get that company back. So you got to fight. You got to fight to the death to get that account. Now, I saw something on Netflix the other day where a rancher that owned over 1,000 acres of land and was a cattle rancher went under because the other rancher in that area went after a couple of his accounts that were huge, that were buying his meats by offering a lower price. And it devastated this rancher and it took him down.
Wow.
So if that's not war in today's day and age, you tell me what is. Because you're messing with people's livelihood and family and so forth. And when that gets involved, then people are going to fight, so they went for that account.
So you have to be aggressive.
You do.
Have to
there's
be
no doubt
quick,
about it.
Efficient.
There's a book out there that says good guys finish last, or
Nice guys, maybe.
I forget the name.
You mentioned this some time ago. We were talking about a unique property, and you said, let's say if I don't make a move on this, I may never be, it may never become available again in my lifetime. And I thought that was an interesting concept too, because that creates
A sense of urgency.
an extreme sense of urgency and a way that you need to make it happen, kind of thing. And in conversation with a lot of different business men, women that we deal with on a daily basis, sometimes the difference between a deal happening or not could be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, something like that. Maybe it's even up to $100,000. But at the end of the day, it's really relative to how much the person that is trying to buy this property values acquiring that property.
Oh, no doubt about it.
And if that person has a vision, let's say, for that property that expands 10, 15, 20 years from now, that is going to help them grow, and this is a stepping stone, whatever the case, whatever their vision is, $30,000 or $50,000 in the whole scheme of things, it might be minuscule.
Correct.
So I think going back is just figuring out, listening to people and figuring out what the enemy, what is their weakness. And I think that that's a big part of what the strategy is finding out the other person's weakness. So you can go slow, fast, slow, quick.
We were talking about in the previous chapters long-term vision,
Yes.
your long-term approach.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you're looking at a long-term approach, then based on your vision, this property may be worth the additional $30,000. So
That's the grand strategy, which is strategy 12.
okay, so if you value the set of visions that you have,
Yeah.
that can empower you,
Sure.
and maybe
thinking-
$30,000 is not that big of a deal.
Right.
Maybe,
We've seen
it's all relative, to be honest with you.
It's all relative.
It's all relative.
We've seen deals that fall through. I'm talking in a business setting, right? Because it's very different. I mean, you can also have a vision for, hey, I want my family to live in this home or whatever
Right.
the case, and whatever your business is. But with businesses that are trying to grow, acquire, expand, whatever the case, or the opposite, they have a vision, and I think they have to do a lot of thinking. And sometimes if it comes down to certain amount of dollars and a business is very profitable, those dollars, it may not make that big of a difference
No,
in the whole scheme of things.
correct.
So
Yeah, I've seen it happen. It depends. When a deal falls off because of $20,000-$30,000, I think that the fault, if you can say, is not on the amount of the money, but on the negotiating techniques that the persons use.
interesting.
That's what I think. Because if the seller wants to truly sell and the buyer wants to truly buy, $30,000 in the whole scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
We're talking a small thing. Their difference could be $300,000. Okay? You are a cheese company that's making cheese, that's moving out to Texas or whatever, and you need 50 acres, 100 acres to produce a cheese factory that you're going to build from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Japan right now is building a multi-billion-dollar company that addresses electric cars that are going to interact with people and computers and all this kind of self-driven cars. They're building the billion. It's costing them billions. So when is that going to be when is the revenue going to come in to offset the cost of that? If that's not long term, you tell me what is. They're actually building that in at this moment, somewhere in Japan. And I read that the other day, and I don't have details. I'm sorry, but you guys can look it up. And so, it's costing them billions of dollars. Okay. And so, when is the revenue that's going to substantiate that investment going to start coming in? Not a few years from now. And even when it starts coming in, how do you offset the investment? So that means people have that money saved up somewhere, and they're willing to put this out because they're thinking that 50 years from now, this is going to be creating a tremendous amount of revenue. So that's long term. That's an amazing feat of engineering.
I would agree. I was looking for it. I couldn't find it, but the mega factory that you're referring to. But yeah, I think that you have to adapt, like you say, to the circumstance.
Yeah.
Know when to move quickly. Know when to think long term. Usually, long term, it's a good thing, right? When you're thinking long term, usually.
You'd be surprised how fast the years go by.
So planning a long-term strategy is usually good. Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Nothing lasts forever. Ask the Romans.
Yeah.
But you have to plan. Yeah.
And move quickly. And I guess I need to make decisions quicker than I thought. Anything else you want to throw in?
Nah, you're good.
No, it's always striving to improve.
Right.
And one of the things that I appreciate is you're honest with me.
Oh, and you're brutally honest with me too.
And I think that that's important.
Jordan Peterson says, as long as you're a little bit better than the miserable self that you were yesterday, you're doing all right. Yeah. So as long as you're improving just a little bit, if you can improve a lot, go for it. But if you're improving just a little bit from the miserable self that you were yesterday, you're doing good.
It's progress. Thank you.
All right.